All right, what's going on? It's now 3 o'clock. Chad here. What's up, my friends? Huge game Saturday night in Happy Valley. Number 3, Penn State hosts number 6, Oregon. Nittany Lions Open is a 3.5-point favorite. That game will kick off at 4:30 on NBC and Peacock. Ohio State remains number 1 in both polls. Miami up to number 2 in the AP. Penn State number 2 in the coaches. Bad news for the Cowboys, who host the Packers Sunday. Wide receiver CeeDee Lamb could miss 3 to 4 weeks with a high ankle sprain. The 49ers suffered another devastating injury. Nick Bosa going to miss the rest of the year with a torn ACL. Monday Night Football, Lions at the Ravens, 5:15 on ABC and ESPN. Baltimore, a 4.5-point favorite. Off day for the Mariners after their sweep of the Astros in Houston. How about that? Seattle, a 3-game lead now in the AL West with 6 to play. They finish up with all 6 games at home, 3 against the Rockies, followed by 3 against the Dodgers. And from college hoops, Bruce Pearl stepping down after 11 seasons at Auburn. The Rip City Drive with Chad Doing is next.
Live from the Coors Light Studios, it's time for the Rip City Drive, hosted by the crazy and often irrational Chad Doing. Coors Light, mountain cold refreshment. Choose chill.
Torrey Horton, the rookie, is deep for the Seahawks. He stands just inside his own 20. This is a long, high spiral. Horton back at his own 5. Gets 1 block, gets 2 blocks, turns upfield, got some running room across the 30, 35. He may go 40. What a block. Midfield 40, 30, 20, 15, 10, 5. Mr. Horton. Touchdown, Seahawks. Unbelievable blocks. Great run by the rookie. 95 yards.
Wilson over center this time. Hands it off for Scadaboo. Up the middle. Cuts left. He's to the 5 to the goal line. Did he get in? No signal yet. Touchdown Giants. Cam Scadaboo.
What's your level of concern with CeeDee Lamb?
I talked to him. He felt good about it. Really did. And I just talked to him just a second ago. And he thought he could go. So that's a good sign. And then the doctors told him that they thought it was not as serious as it could be.
Strap in. The Rip City Drive with Chad Doing starts now.
All right, what's up, my friends? Rip City Drive, Chad Doing with you. My NFL life right now is teetering on disaster after another brutal defeat for the Denver Broncos yesterday, this time in L.A. against the Chargers. I hate football. Jeez. Back-to-back weeks of watching my team go down at the buzzer. One in Indy and the next one in L.A. against the Chargers in a game they had won. And I thought that the Broncos had a genius as a head coach, but right now he doesn't look like a genius, and Bo Nix is not excelling in year number 2. Now, it's only 3 games, so I'm not going to panic yet, but that was devastating. They had that game won. And then Justin Herbert, who I am a big fan of, and all this nonsense about how he's somehow not a top-tier quarterback, everyone that thinks that is a complete fool. Like, if you don't think Justin Herbert is one of the top quarterbacks right up there at the top in the upper crust, you're crazy. The guy is awesome. I don't care if he's won a playoff game or not. He finally has a head coach and the proper people and system around him to thrive after a run of just some horrendous coaches, both in college and the NFL. But he's everything you want in a quarterback. He's big, he's strong, he's mobile, he's accurate, he's smart, he's a good leader, he's everything. And he showed it once again. Not only that, but he's tough. How many times have we seen Herbert play through injury? But that play yesterday where he's on the move, avoiding pressure, and putting the ball on the money to even up that game, when I saw that play, I was like, the Broncos are in trouble. Justin Herbert was awesome.
Herbert to throw. They rush 4. Herbert has time. Now he doesn't. Climbs the pocket, and now he's going to use his legs. Throws to the end zone. Caught, Keenan, touchdown! Touchdown, Chargers! Keenan Allen carrying Riley Moss as a backpack. Comes up with the grab, and they're an extra point away from tying this game.
Yes, what a throw by Herbert on the move with pressure and put the ball on the money. And what a move by the Chargers to bring Keenan back into the mix. He's stepped in seamlessly and has been great for Herbert. That veteran leadership, the understanding of where to get to, how to get open, the route running, everything about it's nice. And that was a big-time grab and a big-time throw. And then the Broncos went out and had one of the worst possible drives at the worst possible time, setting up this for the Chargers.
Snap good, hold good, kick is good. Cam Dicker, the kicker, secures victory as the Chargers start the season 3-0, knocking off each of their AFC West division foes in the process.
Yeah, it's pretty amazing. So the Chargers get the job done. They're 3-0. And what did I tell you, like, when they made the move to hire Jim Harbaugh? It was just a matter of time until Harbaugh had that team in the Super Bowl. He knew what he was doing. He chose the right team, and he's got a big-time quarterback to be able to lead his charge. And he's continuing to slowly piece everything together to get his type of guys on that roster. And they continue to suffer big-time injury, and it doesn't matter because Harbaugh's such a great coach. I love his presence. I love his toughness. And now the team is starting to take on his personality. And it's a great pairing between Herbert and Harbaugh. And that team's good. I don't know if it's this year, but I can guarantee you that Jim Harbaugh will have the Chargers in a Super Bowl. And props to the ownership. After years and years of being just cheap, they finally ponied up the jack to bring in a head coach that knows what he's doing. And in life, as we've mentioned before, you get what you pay for in most situations. You can't skimp on a coach. Sometimes you just have to pony up the scratch and get it done. If you want to be great, you've got to have the right man leading the charge, and they do in Jim Harbaugh. Now, for the Broncos, I question the offense. I question the personnel groupings. I question the play calling. Whatever's going on in Denver right now, the offense is off to a slow start. Defense got shredded in Indy, but right now Bo Nix and the passing game is just, they're missing the mark. And Bo Nix had multiple overthrows on wide-open receivers yesterday that would have changed the game. And you know how it works in the NFL, especially if you're playing on the road, your team's on the road. You miss opportunities to score touchdowns and you settle for field goals, it's going to come back to bite you. And that's exactly what happened to Denver yesterday. They scored a sweet touchdown on fourth down right before halftime to cut the deficit to 3. They go down right at the start of the third quarter and get a touchdown to take the lead. The Chargers fumble the kickoff, and the Broncos had to settle for a field goal. And then after the Chargers kicked a field goal, the Broncos got in scoring position again and settled once again for a field goal. And the Chargers, because they're a good team, they're opportunistic, they took advantage of the opportunities. And Bo Nix, after the game, acknowledged that he's got to be better.
Felt like we kept going backwards and, had, no explosives when we needed them, and we had the ball with a chance, and, that drive just felt like we didn't, do anything. Felt like we just kept going backwards and had long field position and long third downs, and it's not going to, in this league, it's not going to cut it.
Yeah, it's not going to cut it. He's got to be better. Bo Nix has got to play better. The Broncos now 1-2 with back-to-back losses at the buzzer. What is Sean Payton's message? The genius Sean Payton. What's his message to Bo Nix?
Keep slinging it. There's no conversation. Keep slinging it. You're the last thing you want is to. Those are, almost spot on.
Hey, Coach, let me ask you a question. I know you're a genius because that's what you tell me, and you're not afraid to talk about how great you are, and you weren't afraid to tell us that Bo Nix is going to be a top 5 quarterback in the next couple of years. And what's going on with your offense? Do you not want to run the football? Is that the problem? J.K. Dobbins was getting into a nice little groove yesterday, and then you decided to go away from the run. But you're supposed to be a genius. And Bo Nix is supposed to be a top 5 quarterback in your mind. What's wrong with your offense? It looks like garbage, Coach. No offense, of course. Oh, my gosh. Back-to-back games of losing at the buzzer. So there you have it. Very frustrated with that. But once again, we saw some crazy stuff go down in the NFL. And we got a good game tonight, Detroit and Baltimore. Ravens a 4.5-point favorite in B-More on Monday Night Football. And the games yesterday, this is what we love about the NFL, right? You get a lot of close games. You get games that come down to the wire. And normally it's 1 to 5 plays that determine the outcome of the game. It's unbelievable. How about the Browns? Lifeless for basically 3.5 quarters. They're trailing 10-0, and then the Packers put on the dumb cap, and the Browns come all the way back and win the football game. And Joe Flacco was very happy afterwards. The thing about the Browns, it's so bizarre. They've got a great defense, one of the best in the NFL. Their pass rush is nasty. They controlled the game. They just need a quarterback like Baker Mayfield, who they once had and got rid of him because they lost patience. That's what bad franchises do. But that was an incredible performance by Cleveland and their defense to keep them in a position to get the job done, and they finally did. They got the field goal, then they got the pick, and that set up the touchdown, and then their special teams came through, and they got the job done in the end. And the Packers fall from the ranks of the unbeaten. Now, the division and the teams that I've been the most wrong on thus far, just look at the AFC South. I said the Texans were a no-brainer to win the division. The only problem is they can't block on the offensive line. They can't run the football. They can't score points. And they went down in flames yesterday to Jacksonville 17-10. They're now 0-3. And then the crazy part is I said the Colts going into the year, if you recall, were an embarrassment. Because when you get ready for a football season and your two quarterbacks are Anthony Richardson and Daniel Jones, you know you're done. The problem is no one told that message to Daniel Jones. He went out and balled out of his backside again. They're now 3-0 after they ripped the Titans 41-20. And in terms of just overall operation on both sides of the football, through 3 weeks, the Colts have been the best. And Daniel Jones has been unbelievable. I'm shocked. Way off on the AFC South. The Bengals are a disaster. No surprise. How about the Vikings with Carson Wentz? 48-10 winners over Cincy. And Carson Wentz might be the best backup quarterback in the NFL. Steps in, 173 yards, 2 touchdowns, and he was 14 of 20. Minnesota's coach, Mr. O'Connell, can coach the heck out of quarterbacks. The guy's awesome. And Carson Wentz is a good dude. I'm happy to see him get a chance at rebirth, and he's got to capitalize on this opportunity. It was pretty clear that J.J. McCarthy was in over his head when he first kicked it off to begin the year. And now you get Wentz who can step in with competence because he's been there, he's done that. He's a football junkie, and Coach O'Connell knows what he's doing. Steelers didn't look great, but they beat the Patriots. How about that Eagle game? It's one of the most bizarre football games I've seen in quite some time. The Rams dominated the game basically from start until just about finish, but yet in the end it was the Eagles who got the job done. And that's what winning football teams do. On days when they don't have their best stuff, they find different ways to manufacture points and get victories.
They blocked him the last time. The ball is spotted. The kick is away. It's blocked! It's blocked! It's picked up by the Eagles. Running with it is Davis. 30, 20, 10, 5. Touchdown! Game over! Jordan Davis!
Are you kidding me?
Blocked him again!
Are you kidding me?
Blocked him again! Have you ever seen anything like this?
Do you believe in miracles?
The Rams are standing silent. They can't believe what just happened to them. Successive field goal blocks. Win it for the Eagles. What a great, great game. What a great, great comeback. And the final score is 33-26.
You know what's wild about that? That was the final play of the game where Davis ran in the blocked field goal. The Eagles were up by 27-26. It looked like they were going to lose, and Davis returns it to the house for a score. For those Philadelphia bettors out there, they were laying 3.5. You thought you were done, and then all of a sudden the Eagles pulled the miracle out of the hat with the return off the field goal block. It's unbelievable. All right, we got a lot of football to talk about today. I'll recap the experience yesterday at Pioneer Courthouse Square where Rip City showed up and showed out in the Dame reunion rally. It was awesome. And we're going to hear from Dame so you can know what he had to say and how he communicated to the large mass of people, the humanity that was in downtown. But coming up next, we got to dive into football. One of my favorites and one of the most well-connected guys in the league, Benjamin Albright's going to join the show. And we'll go inside the NFL here on the Rip City Drive. Chad Doing with you on your home of the Blazers, 620 Rip City Radio.
Herbert to throw. They rush 4. Herbert has time. Now he doesn't. Climbs the pocket, and now he's going to use his legs. Throws to the end zone. Caught, Keenan, touchdown! Touchdown, Chargers! Keenan Allen carrying Riley Moss as a backpack. Comes up with the grab, and they're an extra point away from tying this game.
All right, our next guest I've got a lot of respect for. You can listen to him on 850 KOA in Denver, host of Broncos Country Tonight. You can follow him on social at Albright NFL, and he is well connected around the league, and he joins us once again. Benjamin, good afternoon. Thanks for the time.
Hey, what's going on?
Well, a lot of things to talk about. Let's go ahead and start with the Broncos. They were in 3rd and long a lot yesterday against the Chargers, and it cost them. What are you seeing that is leading to struggles on 1st and 2nd down?
Well, it's not any one thing. It's several things. The Broncos have the worst success rate on early downs in the entire league right now, which is a testament to what they've been able to do on defense and 3rd down, that they won a game and were able to be in 2 others. They're having struggles with blocking with the center and left guard, despite people claiming this is a great offensive line. It's really not. I don't know where all this stuff that this is such a great line came from, but it's really not as good as they make it out to be. Sean Payton with his weird rotations and over rotations and personnel shufflings and all that stuff, keeps pulling the best skill position players they have off the field in order to try out other guys, and that usually leads to nothing. I mean, outside of one 50-yard run that R.J. Harvey ripped off in the first game, he's done literally nothing since then, and they keep insisting on putting him in there. J.K. Dobbins, clearly the best player on the team. They get away from him for long stretches of time. The offense is predicated on screens and deep shots, and they're missing the deep shots, and everybody's snuffing out the screens. It's not just any one thing. It's a combination of things, and it's sort of painful to watch at this point.
I wanted to ask you about the personnel groupings with all the changes that Coach Payton makes. When you have a young football team, it would seem that you want to have your best players on the field and keep it simple. What is the philosophy behind why he makes so many changes throughout the course of the game?
That's just him. That's the way he's always been. And, it's kind of interesting when you had a top 5, top 7 all-time NFL quarterback in Drew Brees that covers up any manner of sins, and these lengthy, wordy play calls that take forever to get in, the constant rotation of different personnel groupings, pulling running backs off the field so they can't get in a rhythm. These are all things that Sean Payton's just done, and Drew Brees covered for that for years. And, now you've got a younger quarterback who's not at that level, and you can kind of start to see the flaws.
Hey, Ben, I watched the post-game presser with Coach Payton. I've been surprised at the lack of discipline so far this year. I didn't see anyone ask him about that. Was that question asked to Coach Payton about the lack of discipline with some of the silly penalties?
Not that I'm aware, and it should have. This is an undisciplined team in a lot of ways. It's been both sides of the ball. It's not one, not stick to one side of the ball. It's all 3 phases. We saw the lack of discipline cost them the game in Indianapolis with special teams. We saw defense with Ufanga with the body slam for no reason. Garrett Bowles over there on offense getting offensive face masking. Adam Troutman lined up in the neutral zone before the snap. It's not any one thing. It's all over the place. It's pervasive, and that falls back on coaching. Discipline falls back on coaching.
We're talking with Benjamin Albright, 850 KOA here on the Rip City Drive. All right, you're more of a football technical guy than I am, so I want to ask you about Bo Nix and his early season struggles. Is it something where he's feeling rushed, it's not there? Is it mechanical? What are you seeing that's leading to some of the issues for Bo?
Well, he's always been a guy that's kind of had happy feet. Toward the end of the season last year, he settled down a little bit, but he's always been a guy with happy feet, and this year you're seeing the mechanical aspects of that bear out. He's making throws from his tiptoes. He's not setting, not getting his base underneath him, and that's leading to throws that are sailing on him a little bit. We saw that in this past game where he was missing Marvin Mims deep, missed Cortland Sutton deep, although Sutton slowed up a little on that, so he kind of shares some of it. He is mechanically kind of, going back to some of the bad habits that he had back in college. And so you're seeing that play out in real time. It's another thing to me that falls back on coaching. You're either coaching something or you're allowing it to happen. And these penalties and this mechanical regression are things they are definitely allowing to happen.
All right, one more Bronco question for you. What are you hearing on Dre Greenlaw as to when he might be in the lineup for the Broncos?
Well, they were going to try and give him a run on the original goal was to get him for the Monday night Cincinnati game coming up, but that's not going to happen. Obviously, he's gone on IR now, so it's going to be 4 weeks for him. There's some scar tissue. He He got back out there on the practice field during training camp and then had sort of a re-aggravation at that point. There was that report back in April about him injuring himself working out. It was a slight tweak. That one wasn't the thing, but it just kept lingering. He re-aggravated it again in July or August, and then from there was just unable to get back in the field, in August and September. And so they kind of got tired of trying to play it week to week and just all right, we're going to commit to a 4-week, let this thing rest, heal up, get the scar tissue out of there, and then we'll bring it back. So he should be back in 4 to 5 weeks.
Ben, I was way off on the AFC South. I thought the Texans would win the division and the Colts would be in the basement, and yet it's now flip-flop with the Texans 0-3 and the Colts at 3-0. And Daniel Jones is playing terrific football right now. I know that Shane Steichen has done great work with quarterbacks in the past, but what's been the key there to get him going and moving in the right direction and playing the football at the level he is right now?
Getting it out quick, not taking negative plays. If you can keep an offense on schedule, it makes you look like a genius. And that's the thing. And Daniel Jones, maybe not capable of executing some of the other offenses that he's been in, especially behind some of the offensive lines that he's been behind. We see how bad that line is up there in New York when we watch Russell Wilson play. But it's having a good offensive line, which Indy very much does, and having an offensive coordinator who wants to maximize you and get the ball out quick goes a long way. Shane Steichen's gotten the most out of quarterbacks everywhere he's been, whether it was early on with Justin Herbert, had one of his best seasons, whether it was Jalen Hurts, had some of his best seasons under Steichen, and they couldn't get Anthony Richardson going, but they got Daniel Jones going, and look at that offense now.
Well, you mentioned Justin Herbert. I had a chance to watch him here at Oregon. I'm a big fan, and I thought that throw he made to tie up the game yesterday was sensational, but he's playing good football. The Chargers are undefeated. What do you think about the way Herbert is working in that offense now, and they're utilizing his legs and his movement as well?
Yeah, part of that is just getting that offense, get the right guys around him, and they sort of have that now. And then the other part of that is him being healthy. He's been a little banged up over the course of his career at different times. He's just a full-on go right now, and you see him out there playing free and loose, and you can sort of you see the talent. What he did in that on that throw, threading the needle, getting the arm behind the defender in his face, and putting it right on target, throwing against the body like that. That's an incredible throw, and you just sort of see him playing his best ball right now, and good for him, bad for the Broncos, but good for him that he's finally found that spot where he's able to maximize himself.
Ben, we got the unfortunate news. Nick Bosa out for the year, another brutal injury for the 49ers, torn ACL. Are the inordinate number of injuries for the 49ers, is that just bad luck, or is there any other possible explanation for why so many of their guys are going down?
Well, that's sort of the question. There's always been this sort of stigma that people that play for Kyle Shanahan tend to get injured at a higher rate, and anecdotally that seems to be true. I don't have a study on it in front of me. Injuries are kind of an outlier, though. They're not sticky year to year. You can go 1 year and have a ton of injuries, 2 years, 3 years, have a ton of injuries, and then have a series of years where you don't. You look at the Broncos; they had the worst injury luck for 3 years in a row. Then they had 2 years of great injury luck, and now they're having bad injury luck again. So, it's one of those things that there's something to it. Like, you should study it to see if it's an outlier, but the reality is most of it's anecdotal, and we tend to sort of go with those claims and reinforce those claims whether they're really true or not.
Yeah, that's a good point. Benjamin Albright, 850 KOA here on the Rip City Drive. There's always a lot of noise around the Bears because it's Chicago. Caleb Williams much better yesterday in that win over Dallas with 4 touchdowns. How do you think that relationship is, coming along between he and Ben Johnson, the new head coach?
I think you're getting there, Ben. It's just it's a question of finding each other out, and you don't find each other out. You can figure some things out in practice and all that, but you don't find each other out really till the heat of battle. You get in it, and you kind of sort of start to figure, okay, this is what this guy is, this is what he isn't, this is what he reverts to in these situations, this is what he goes to, and you start to craft your offense around that. You're seeing that take shape game by game. Ben Johnson will get that offense where it needs to be. I love the fact they made a big commitment to the offensive line this offseason, and that's what you need to do to win football in the NFL. Commit to your offensive line and build the rest around it.
All right, I want to play a clip for you. The Bucs yesterday beat the Jets. Baker Mayfield and his squad now 3-0. Here's what he had to say about the game being personal.
I loved it, and it's also their D coordinator was the one that cut me in Carolina, so it was a lot of stuff was personal today. Hassan Reddick, former Jet, a lot of people.
Baker is playing good football for the Bucs and has ever since he arrived. I really like the turnaround. What do you see in Baker? Is it maturity? Is it just getting in the right spot with the right staff around him and the success he's having in Tampa? What's your read there?
A combination of things. I think there is something to the people he has around him, but I think also some of it is belief in him. There's something to anybody, whatever your profession is. When you know that the people that employ you believe in you and want to empower you, you tend to you drop the stress reactions and you start to to excel. And so I think that's a part of it as well. Is Baker's really just he was in Cleveland. They didn't really believe in him, even though he's the best quarterback that franchise had since it's been the Browns 2.0 in Cleveland. And he bounced around a little bit, and he finally just kind of found his feet under him and found people that believed in him. And once that happened, you saw him excel again. And that's really what it is. It's just having people believe in you.
All right. So, the first quarter of the season, teams are still trying to get a feel for things. But what are one or two teams that jump out at you that's been very impressive thus far for you, Ben?
Well, we talked about the Colts, and obviously I think it's pretty impressive what they're doing there. You got to love that. You look around, Arizona's got a pretty good defense. They couldn't quite get it done against San Francisco yesterday, but they've got a really good defense. If they can unlock the offense, then they're going to be good to go. Minnesota's defenses look good. Carson Wentz actually came out there, looked pretty decent. I wonder if he keeps that together, if they might put JJ McCarthy back on ice for a little while and let him mature a little bit. Elsewhere around the league, I love the fact that the Saints are fighting, even though they're so bad.
Yes.
They were competitive in the first two games, and they weren't really competitive in the third one, but they're at least fighting. Beyond that, I mean, it's just kind of watching this thing play out, looking at the Chargers finally put it all together. They've been a team that's had the talent on the roster for a long time, but poor coaching, and things like that have held them back. And so it's just kind of interesting to see them with good coaching take off and be as good a football team as they can be.
You mentioned Carson Wentz. Coach O'Connell with the Vikings. I've talked to a few people that have a lot of respect for what he does, but what do you hear around the league in terms of him, and what's his secret sauce? Because it seems like anyone he touches turns to gold.
It's, the aforementioned belief, believing in guys and allowing them to be their best selves, trying to craft things around them, finding out what it is they excel at, finding what they're not comfortable with, figuring out why they're not comfortable with it. Is just because they haven't been coached on it or because they're not capable of it. And so he crafts his offense to what his guys can do, and more coaches should learn from that because you get a lot of coaches that have that inherent coaching arrogance that are just like, well, I'm looking for a guy that fits what I do, and I'm going to make them do what I do, and we're either going to win like that way or we're going to lose. And, we sort of have one of those coaches here in Denver, and, we lose games we shouldn't because he refuses to shift dogmatically from what he does to what guys can do.
Yeah, Sean Payton, he drives me crazy sometimes because he's really arrogant and yet won't acknowledge some things like the lack of discipline. Payton drives me crazy sometimes, Ben. He just drives me insane. Ugh.
Well, you're preaching to the choir on that.
All right, tonight, Monday Night Football. I think the Ravens right now, 4.5-point favorite at home against the Lions. A good AFC-NFC matchup. What are your thoughts on the game tonight?
I think the Ravens are going to boat race them. I don't think the Lions are as good as they've been the last couple of years. I know they had the big win last week, but offensive coordinator John Morton, you go back and look at his history, and they tend to beat up on some teams, and then they lay an egg against teams that are better than they are. So we'll see. A lot of that offense is around the line of scrimmage, and Baltimore's too smart to allow that to happen. So I think Baltimore, and I think laying the points is the money tonight.
All right. What are you going to focus on Broncos country tonight?
Well, we'll be recapping the game and, getting into why it is that this team's losing games and, what it is that they need to change going forward. They do have a rather soft schedule going forward outside of a game at Philadelphia for the next month and a half. So there is a path for recovery here.
All right. He's with 850 KOA in Denver, NFL Insider, also host of Broncos Country tonight. Ben, I always appreciate your time. Thank you, and enjoy your week.
Absolutely. Take care.
There you go. That's Benjamin Albright. Yeah, Sean Payton. It's like, come on, man. Be better, Sean. Be better. Oh, what a great weekend of football it was, though. It was great. And I will say, and I'll get into this, I think after watching the Civil War, I think the Beavers gave me exactly what I was looking for. Just a better overall operation. They were tighter in just the basics, which is what I wanted to see. We all knew the Ducks were going to win the game. I think the Beavers covered the spread, too. That was very manly of them to cover that big number that Oregon was laying at home at 35.5 or 34.5, depending on where you got it. But the overall operation was tighter. And for the Ducks, no need to show anything special, no need to play your starters for an extended period of time. Just get the win, stay healthy, and now you can get ready for Penn State and that trip to Happy Valley. 4:30 kick on NBC and Peacock. That's a big-time game. Number 6, Oregon. Number 3, Penn State. And right now, the line, I think Nittany Lions at 3.5. I'm calling it right now. I think the Ducks are going to win. I like the Ducks. I think they're a better football team. I think they have better team speed. And I trust Dan Lanning and his staff in a big game like that more so than I do James Franklin and his crew. It's going to be an awesome, awesome football game. And for me, the matchup it's very simple. Penn State may have the best offensive line in college football. They also have terrific tailbacks. Oregon's defensive line, which I've been very excited about from the start of the year, especially a defensive tackle, those guys up front for Oregon have just got to hold their own and contain the run game. And that's going to determine the outcome. If they're able to slow Penn State's run game and they don't allow the explosion plays in the run and they can, manage the game on first and second down, and if you put Drew Aller in third and long, that's where you're going to win the game. I've watched enough Penn State football. I know everyone says that Drew Aller is a great quarterback. I just don't see great when I watch him play. I think he's good, but I don't think he's exceptional. I would be more concerned as a defensive coordinator preparing for Dante Moore than I would Drew Aller. And that's just how I see it. Now, again, they're great up front, both offensive and defensive lines. So Oregon's got to win the game in the trenches. But if they control that run game and they put those guys in third down and long, Oregon's going to win the game. And the reason why the game is important, I think we all know this, not because you need the win to get into the playoff, but if you want access to the Big Ten title game, this tiebreak is going to go a long ways in determining that. Because after this game, Oregon's schedule is not particularly difficult. Same goes with Penn State. So this is a monster football game, and it's going to be in prime time at 4:30. Pumped. There's a lot of great games. Georgia hosting Alabama. I think the Bulldogs are a 3-point favorite. We all know Kalen DeBoer is not winning that game, but it's a big opportunity for the Ducks. I think this team, as I've said, and I'll say it again, is better than last year's squad. And I'm not sure why everyone was so apprehensive about the Ducks going into the year. My guess is it's because you had to change a quarterback. When you go basically 3 straight years of Heisman-level play at quarterback, and then you have Dante Moore, your most recent memory of Dante Moore was the play at UCLA. But how great was that for Oregon to get him back? He gets to school and has a chance to sit for a year to learn the offense, to understand what they want to try and accomplish. And then, boom, he takes the field, reworked offensive line with a couple of sweet tackles from the portal. And now they got the explosion back in the run game. They got the balance back in the offense. And they're out there just churning up the yards. It's very impressive. The other team that's impressing me right now, too, and I mentioned this last week, but USC. Lincoln Riley is back to playing Lincoln Riley ball. Their run-pass balance is sensational. And Jordan Mayava is playing good football. And the guy's on absolute fire right now. But the key to the USC attack is run. They run the football first. And everything comes off of that, the play action. And once they establish the run and they start gouging with the run game, then all of a sudden you get hit with the play action and Mayava's got open receivers running downfield. But this is the weekend. I think I saw it. USC at Illinois. They're laying 7 points. They're a 7-point favorite on the road at Illinois. And Illinois is coming off a straight ass whooping at the hands of Indiana. So keep an eye on that game. USC may be in for a bit of a dogfight at Illinois. That's got upset just written all over it. Team coming off a beat down at the hands of Indiana. And what's that guy's name? Coach Signetti. I got to give that guy credit. I thought they were in trouble this week, and he went out there and just jackhammered Illinois. They're good. That's a good football team. I think Signetti knows what he's doing. But USC at Illinois, that could be an upset. Upset alert. Upset watch. All right, coming up at 5:20, we're going to talk with Joe DeLeon. We'll dive into this Penn State-Oregon matchup. I want to get his take. I want to get his take on a lot of different things. How about our boy Cam Skattebo? Or at least my boy. Why do you think I talked about this guy nonstop for a year straight? And everyone's like, dude, what's so big? What's the big deal about Skattebo? And then all of a sudden he became a Heisman candidate, and now he's out there on Sunday Night Football just running guys over. I love everything about him. And I almost convinced Travis Demers to lay down the jack last night to get a giant Skattebo jersey. So I'll talk about Cam. That guy he's awesome. When you play hard and you have that mentality, good things can happen. All right, we'll keep things rolling. Rip City Drive, Chad doing on your home of the Blazers, 620 Rip City Radio. Oh, this song is sensational. Feel it. All right, Tony in Boring has reached out. He's feeling for me because I watched my team go down at the buzzer on back-to-back weeks. The Broncos just ripping my heart out. Not a surprise. First, it was Indy after getting that penalty on the leverage call. The dude missed a 60-yarder. They move it forward 15 yards. Of course, he nailed the 45-yarder. And then yesterday, they just came apart at the seams at the end of the game. They gave it back to the Chargers. The Chargers gave the game to Denver, and Denver said, no, we're good, man. Here, have it back, and gave it away. And the Chargers won the game. He also said, my cousin is getting married on Saturday afternoon. I don't get to watch the Duck Nittany Lion game live. Nut punches everywhere. He also said, you called it on Cam Scattaboo. He is a winner. You don't get to see many guys lower their head and look for contact in the NFL the way that dude does. Well, I'm not going to argue with that. Cam Scattaboo is my favorite football player.
Wilson over center this time. Hands it off for Scattaboo. Up the middle. Cuts left. He's to the 5 to the goal line. Did he get in? No signal yet. Touchdown Giants. Cam Scattaboo.
Scattaboo! And we saw it last week where he actually distracted his head coach, Brian Daboll, at his press conference, where Daboll is trying to answer a question. Scattaboo's walking by. And Daboll gets distracted. He's like, I'm sorry, man. You're going to have to ask that question again. It's Scattaboo. And then all of a sudden, you hear Scattaboo. Ah! I've been watching Scattaboo now for over 2 years. I saw every snap he took at Arizona State. He nearly won a Heisman Trophy last year. And here's what I can tell you about Cam Scattaboo and why I'm jealous he's with the Giants and not on the Broncos roster. And based on what I saw from the offensive line yesterday, the Broncos could use Scattaboo to help in blitz pickup, for crying out loud. But it's very simple. You've all seen football players like this. Cam Scattaboo is a guy who just finds a way to make plays. And he's going to be, in most cases, stronger, tougher, and have a greater desire than the guy he's competing against. That's just the way he was made. It's almost like the Lord created him and said, you are being put on this planet to get out there on the football field and ram people. His contact balance is off the chain. His competitive desire is off the chain. I just love him. And I love that game last year where Arizona State's playing at home against UCF, and they were struggling to get the offense going. And Cam was on the sideline. They had decided to keep him out because he had gotten dinged up in the game before. So what does he do? He was lobbying Kenny Dillingham on the sideline like, bro, put me in. Just let me suit up. And he kept trying to convince the coach to do so. And they decided not to do that. But he tried because that's how badly he wants to be on a football field. But I'm telling you, man, it's very simple. You can learn this. We all can learn lessons from Scattaboo. When you just simply show up every day and you work your ass off and you work hard and you put in the time and you have that type of dedication, it doesn't matter which world you're in, you're going to make a way for yourself. Just on the basis of showing up and the willingness to outwork everyone. And I love Scattaboo's toughness. That guy is a football player. And he's versatile. If you need him to catch balls, yeah, he can do that. If you want him in short yardage, he can do that. He can go special teams. You can line him up as a tailback. And I have a special place in my heart for football players, white running backs and white cornerbacks. I just feel a certain connection with those guys because there aren't many of them. But Cam Scattaboo is tough as nails. Love the guy. And Giant fans, like, what do you think New York fans want? They don't want some sugarfoot out there. They want some guy who's going to be willing to bang and get after it and show toughness. Cam Scattaboo is awesome. Now, on to the other thing that he brought up. I'm sorry, and no disrespect to anyone out there, of course, but they should ban weddings on college football Saturdays. It's inexcusable. You should not be getting married during football season. Because no guy that's at the wedding, no matter how they dress up or what they pretend to be, they don't want to be there. And I feel bad for anyone that has to be at that wedding instead of watching that football game. Why can't you do it at a different time? Why did you have to do that in September when the Ducks and the Lions are playing? Because you know the guy knew that was going on. Wait a second. The Ducks are going to play at Penn State. It's like the biggest game of the year. We cannot get married that day. But, of course, you can't say that because it's considered insensitive. But it's not. The idea that you would just put together a wedding on that day is crazy. So the best way to solve this is to ban all weddings during college football Saturdays and NFL Sundays. You can't do it. No one wants to be at the wedding and watch you get married when they could be watching that game. That's crazy to me. What are you doing? Have the wedding in August during camp. Why not do it during camp? The weather's nice in August, too. And that way you're married and you're settled in just in time to watch that big game. But now every guy at that wedding is going to be tortured because they don't want to be there. Oh, well, that sucks. And now my man Tony, he's not even the one getting married. He doesn't get to hand over a ring. He doesn't get to have a honeymoon night, none of that. He just has to go and be at a wedding and pretend to care, and he's going to be checking the score of the game on his phone the whole time. And then smiling and pretending like he cares about what's going on when really all he wants is to be at home on the couch watching the biggest game of the year. All because, we have to get married in September. Ridiculous. Ban them all. You cannot be getting married on Oregon-Penn State Day. That's absurd. All right, we'll keep things rolling. Rip City Drive, Chad doing with you. Joe DeLeon previewing that game coming up at 5:20. And you're going to hear from Dame and what he had to say at the reunion rally yesterday at Pioneer Courthouse Square. I was down there, and Rip City showed up and showed out. You got the Rip City Drive with Chad doing on your home of the Blazers, 620 Rip City Radio. All right, what's up, my friends? Now 4 o'clock. We got a big one coming up on Saturday night in Happy Valley. Unfortunately, Tony and Boring won't be watching the game. He'll be at a wedding. Number 3, Penn State will host number 6, Oregon. The Nittany Lions open as a 3.5-point favorite. It's a 4:30 kick on NBC and Peacock. Ohio State still number 1 in both polls. Miami's up to 2 in the AP. Penn State 2 in the coaches. Bad news for the Cowboys. They're going to host the Packers Sunday. Wide receiver CeeDee Lamb could miss 3 to 4 weeks with a high ankle sprain. The 49ers, another devastating injury. Nick Bosa going to miss the rest of the year with a torn ACL. Monday Night Football, Lions at the Ravens. ABC and ESPN at 5:15. Baltimore favored by 4.5. Off day for the Mariners after their sweep of the Astros in Houston. Seattle now a 3-game lead in the AL West with 6 to play. The M's finish up with all 6 at home. 3 against the Rockies, followed by 3 against the Dodgers. And Bruce Pearl stepping down after 11 seasons at Auburn. More Rip City Drive coming at you right now. Oh, my gosh. I feel bad for Tony and Boring. He's going to be stuck at a wedding on Saturday during the Ducks Nittany Lions game at 4:30 on NBC and Peacock. What a monster football game that is. I just think it's inconsiderate to hold a wedding during college football season. That's all. He set his plan, and this is always a shaky plan. He's going to try and go dark and not pay attention to his phone, and then when he gets home, he can watch the game. I mean, that sounds good in theory, but the problem is you're going to be at a public event, this wedding. I don't know how many people are going to be there, but you can always rely on some knob to share the score with you, even when you don't ask. Like, oh, dude, the Ducks are up by 14 right now. They're going to win the game. And then they blow it right there. It's like, please close your pie hole. And I'm with Larry David on this. I think when it comes to sporting events, especially if you're at a wedding and everyone knows what's going on and yet no one can watch it, I think you have to assume tape. You've got to assume DVRs and work. You can't just go up and offer up the score. I think it's on the person who wants to share the score to ask, do you want to know the score? You've got to assume pre-tape in that situation. You start blurting out numbers and the score, you could ruin everything for everyone. So it's so tough. Everyone's got access to their phones. Everyone's up to speed. Now, what I would do if I were in your situation, Tony, 2 things. 1, I would inform the bride that she picked a bad day and that even though she's not planning on getting married again, that it was a poor choice of dates. She should have gone August or something like that. But what I do, and it works out really well, the YouTube TV on the phone is a great way to pay attention to what might be going on elsewhere if you're in the middle of something. I'm not sure if your wife would get mad at you or not, but you could sneak in a viewing of the game even if you're at the wedding. Just put the phone on silent. It comes up crystal clear. You could watch and pay attention to the game. That's one avenue. You might get publicly shamed by some of the other people that are at the wedding, but the guys would understand what you're trying to accomplish there. That's a bad scenario. Very bad. Not good. But that's a big football game. As I mentioned before, I like Oregon to win. And I think the key battle, it's pretty simple, right? You don't need to be a rocket scientist to figure out where this game's going to be won. It's going to be in the trenches, like most big football games. Penn State has got a great offensive line. If they're able to run the football and keep it in 3rd down and manageable, the Ducks are in trouble. If Oregon is able to win 1st and 2nd down and contain the Penn State run game and put Drew Aller in 3rd and long, they're going to win the game. That's the key. And I think early on in a big game like this, for Dante Moore, just keep it simple. You know, your adrenaline's flowing. You know, things are moving 1,000 miles an hour. You just got to stay within yourself over the first, 10, 15 minutes of the football game. Meaning, don't let the adrenaline and the excitement turn to a potential turnover that could put you behind the 8 ball early. You've got to weather that early part of the storm. So if they weather the early storm because of the emotion and Penn State being the home team, and then they win that battle up front to contain the Nittany Lions run game, they're going to win. And I'm sorry, I like James Franklin, and he's a great recruiter, but he doesn't win big football games. I trust Dan Lanning and his staff more in this big spot than I do Franklin and his staff. And yes, I know it's on the road. It's going to be a whiteout, Happy Valley. People are going to be going crazy. But Penn State's had a number of these big moments before where they fall flat on their face. So the Ducks can absolutely win that football game. And it's critical because if they get this win, then they got the all-important tie break, and that puts them in a direct path for the Big Ten title game. But that is a money game. There's great games all over the place this weekend. You know, we suffered through the first couple of weeks where you get these mismatches and a lot of blowouts, and now all of a sudden we're going to be thrust into greatness with the games that are coming up this week. I mean, this is top 25 alone. Friday night, 4 o'clock on ESPN, Florida State, undefeated at 3-0. They're 8 in the country at Virginia. Good football game. Virginia, not ranked, but a good team. Also, at 6 on Fox on Friday night, number 24 TCU at Arizona State. TCU's 3-0. They've gotten off to a great start. Hoover's been terrific with 11 touchdowns and 2 picks. And Arizona State's coming off of a great road win at Baylor, where they were able to get off with Sam Leavitt and Jordan Tyson. On Saturday, I mentioned the game before, but you've got number 21 USC playing at number 23 Illinois. The Trojans are 4-0. They're a 7-point favorite on the road, and number 23 Illinois is coming down off that beat down at the hands of Indiana. Notre Dame, who just got their first win of the year, on the road at Arkansas. Irish 1-2. The Razorbacks are 2-2. The Irish a short 4.5-point favorite. Don't forget about 12:30 on CBS. Number 1 Ohio State at Washington. And I talked to Alex Brink this morning, and just to get his take on the Dogs after the Apple Cup, he said Washington's really good. And he said their quarterback is super legit. That is a great game. That is a game that Washington could win, and Jed Fish kind of put his mark on the program. Husky Stadium's going to be rocking. Number 4, LSU's at number 13, Ole Miss. Both teams at 4-0. Auburn coming off the loss at Oklahoma at number 9, Texas A&M, who is 3-0 coming off that win at South Bend over Notre Dame. Indiana coming off the beatdown of Illinois 4-0 at Iowa 3-1, who's coming off an impressive road win at Rutgers. Number 15, Tennessee 3-1 at undefeated Mississippi State. And right now, Tennessee's a 7.5-point favorite. Arizona unbeaten at unbeaten Iowa State. The Cyclones ranked 14th. Oregon at Penn State at 4:30. Alabama at Georgia at 4:30. And there you have it. I mean, that is big game after big game after big game. And that's just the top 25 action. So I guess what I'm trying to say is that we have phenomenal football games coming up this week. And the NFL slate next week is the same way. Starting with that Thursday night game with the Seattle Seahawks playing down in Arizona against the Cardinals. Both teams at 2-1. Vikings at the Steelers. Vikings coming off the just a blowout victory over the Bengals. Steelers got the win against the Patriots. Commanders at the Falcons. Saints at the Bills. Browns at the Lions. Cleveland coming off the surprise win over Green Bay at 13-10 in Cleveland. Chargers at the Giants. Eagles at the Bucks. Both teams sit at 3-0. That's a big-time game on Fox at 10. Ravens at the Chiefs, 125 on CBS. That's a great football game. And I guess that probably means we're going to get a large dose of Tony Romo that day. That's definitely a Nance Romo game. Gee, Jim, I don't know. Hopefully Romo is medicated before he hits the booth for that one. It's like, I want to settle in and watch a big-time game between two great teams. I don't need Tony Romo just losing it in the box with Jim Nance. And like I said, though, that the romance that exists between those two, it's amazing how much Jim Nance loves Tony Romo and what he's willing to put up with. And then that Sunday nighter's a good one. Packers at the Cowboys. Also, Bears are in Las Vegas to meet the Raiders. Chicago's suddenly a road favorite. How much would you like to bet that the Bears are going to go into Vegas and lose that football game? That just smells like a Bears loss right there. They beat the Cowboys, 4 touchdowns for Caleb Williams. They were impressive. Finally got their operation running a little bit smoother. And I want to see what they do on the road. That's a big, little role reversal there. You go from an outright dog win to being a road favorite. Just something to keep an eye on. Jets and Dolphins, hideous football game. 2 0-3 teams, horrible. And then the struggling Broncos taking on the Bengals, who just got wally mopped by Minnesota. Yeah, the Broncos. I don't need that type of aggravation in my life. Back-to-back weeks of losing at the buzzer. No thanks, man. I don't need that. You don't need that. What's up with that? But I would say one of my favorite football players in the NFL right now is Baker Mayfield. I just love him saying what he truly feels and how personal that game was yesterday in the win over the Jets.
I loved it. And it's also their D coordinator was the one that cut me in Carolina. So it was a lot of stuff was personal today. Hassan Reddick, former Jet, a lot of people.
Gosh, I love that so much. See, Baker Mayfield, he's just willing to say what other people want to say but don't. But Baker Mayfield's about as real as it gets. So anytime you hear a coach or a player say, I'm not really thinking about that, it's just another game, they mean the exact opposite. Much like when an athlete says it's not about the money, then you know that's the cue for it's all about the money. But Baker Mayfield doesn't do that. He's like, yeah, it was personal. That guy cut me. I didn't like the way I was treated. I wanted to go out there and send a message. Baker Mayfield is wildly competitive. He's very tenacious out there in the football field. He shows toughness. And because of his style and the way he plays, he puts his teammates in a good position, and he wins football games. They love him. I would do anything to protect him, or I'd run through a brick wall for him because of the way he competes. I like guys. Basically, I think Baker Mayfield's like the quarterback version of Cam Scatterbo. Not overly athletic, not all of the physical tools, but just a competitive desire and a willingness to go out there and do whatever he can to possibly win football games. That's been Baker Mayfield ever since he walked on at Oklahoma. He actually timed it. If I remember the story correctly, he was bumping around the campus there in Norman and waited for the football team to pop out. And then he rolled up on Coach Stoops and was like, hey, I'm going to walk onto your team. Like some type of Rudy story. And he did. And he ended up winning a Heisman and being the number 1 overall quarterback in the NFL. How can you not love that guy? And like with everyone else, a little maturity along the way. Oh, yeah, and Aaron Glenn, apparently the Jets are not the same Jets. They're not the same old Jets. I've watched them play 3 games. They're definitely the same old Jets.
Everyone says same old Jets. These guys are going to fight no matter what the situation is. There's no give up in them. I hate that term. And I really don't know what that term means, but I know this. They're not the same old Jets. All right, so these guys are fighters. I love these guys. And listen, we know we have work to do. All right, this is a team that's going to continue to keep stacking until we get to where we need to get to.
Hey, Coach, I can tell you exactly what same old Jets means. It means that your team and your franchise has sucked regularly for like 3 straight decades. It might be 4. Basically, ever since I was a kid, the Jets have been a disaster. They've had a couple of good seasons, but for the most part, the ownership is bad, the coaches have been bad, and they destroy quarterbacks. So when we say same old Jets, we mean you guys suck just like you have every year for like the last 40 years. And again, no disrespect, but that's the franchise you coach now. Remember, it was the 49ers back in the day, like in the early 90s, they were playing a game against the Rams when they were in St. Louis, and they went in there and just curb stomped them. And you had guys on the sideline saying, same old Rams. No. Same old sorry-ass Rams. That's what it means, Coach. I love that. He's like, I have no idea what that means.
Everyone says same old Jets. These guys are going to fight no matter what the situation is. There's no give up in them. I hate that term. And I really don't know what that term means, but I know this. They're not the same old Jets. All right, so these guys are fighters. I love these guys. And listen, we know we have work to do. All right, this is a team that's going to continue to keep stacking until we get to where we need to get to.
Hey, Coach, you're 0-3. You're the same old Jets. Just ask Bill Parcells. You know him. He would tell you the same thing. You are what your record says you are. You're the same old Jets at 0-3, and you still suck. Good luck with that. And good luck with your ownership, too. They'll be very supportive along the way for you. All right, we'll keep things rolling. Rip City Drive, Chad Doing. Hope you're enjoying your fabulous Monday afternoon. Blue skies and sunshine. You got to love that as Our summertime is winding down. Joe DeLeon previewing Oregon Penn State coming up at 5:20.
Wilson over center this time. Hands it off for Scadaboo. Up the middle. Cuts left. He's to the 5, to the goal line. Can he get in? No signal yet. Touchdown Giants. Cam Scadaboo.
Well, the great news for Cam Scadaboo is that I think the Giants running back, was it Tyrone Tracy? Well, he's out with an injury, so Scadaboo is going to be thrust into the spotlight with more opportunities to play and carries. And the great part about that is that finally now, for those who didn't pay attention to Arizona State the last couple of years, they're going to get a chance to see him play on a big stage in the NFL. And I'm excited about that because he's a character guy who went to ASU when Dillingham took over the program. They were brutal in his first year there, but he continued to work and he trusted what Dillingham was trying to do, and he became a part of this resurgence in the desert with the Sun Devils. And Cam Scadaboo works his tail off, and his teammates love him because he's a football guy. He just makes plays. And you know how this goes in basketball, football, it doesn't matter the sport. When you practice your tail off and you continue to make plays in practice, and then when you get those opportunities in the games and you make the most of it, coaches will continue to find ways to get you on the field because you're a playmaker. And I love that. So props to Cam Scadaboo. I love everything about the guy. He's just fun to watch. The contact balance, the hunger. He runs with evil intentions. Like, that's the type of running back I like. I like Derrick Henry. Like, when he's got the football, he's looking to, hand out some punishment. It's like, yeah, you can tackle me, but you're going to pay a price. Meaning you're going to catch a knee in your face and you might get a stiff arm and I'm going to put you on the ground. And by the way, I'm big and strong, just like Scadaboo. Love him. Now, his coach in college, Kenny Dillingham, I love everything about Dillingham because he's young, energetic, smart, and is embracing the new way of college football. And he's out there not only coaching his tail off, but he's also promoting the program and telling the fans what they need to do. Now, ASU's got a big game coming up at home on Friday night in the desert, Sun Devil Stadium, against TCU. And these are two teams jockeying for position in a crowded Big 12. And Kenny Dillingham today said, hey, we need you to show up and show out.
Yeah, it's been unbelievable playing at home. We need that this week. This isn't one of the games that I've said this is going to be a critical game to our season. I've said it from dating back to when the schedule came out, was we have a really, really good TCU team with a really good quarterback coming in on a Friday night, high emotions, right before a bye week. Like this, we got to push all the eggs or the chips, whatever it is. I don't know. Haven't slept much. Into the middle, right? And we need the fans there. And we just don't need you there. We need you loud. Like, we need to make an impact on Friday night for our players because we've been showing up. We've been great. I mean, the atmosphere has been awesome. Let's continue to build on that. And Friday night, let's make, this the place to be on Friday night.
Now, when he took over the job, he talked about activating the Valley. I was like, that's kind of a cool message. But now you're seeing it start to come to fruition. You win games, people get excited, they start to show up. Their first game of the year was against Northern Arizona. Cupcake, sold out. I went to the second game they had at home against Texas State, sold out. And I anticipate Friday night's game against TCU to be a sellout. Now, the other thing that jumped out at me this past weekend was Texas Tech. They went into Utah and basically beat Utah at their game. They out-physicaled Kyle Whittingham and his squad. Not many teams can do that in their crib, and they did that. And maybe you Beaver fans feel a little bit better about that game down in Lubbock against Texas Tech. Texas Tech is not – they're not the same Texas Tech they were back in the day with Mike Leach and Cliff Kingsbury when they're, just chucking the football around the field and not really giving a darn about defense. They've gone out and spent big money on bringing in guys who have changed the way they play up front, both on the offensive and defensive lines. Where big games are actually won. And they went in there and just physically controlled the line of scrimmage against Utah. And Kyle Whittingham, I got more respect for that guy than just about anybody. And the one thing I'll say about the Utes is that Dampier and their attack, Texas Tech controlled the run game, and they put – this is a good example of what I expect in Penn State, Oregon. Like Utah, if they're able to run the football and control the line of scrimmage and they're in, third down and short, and the play action becomes a factor, you're going to have a hard time beating them. But Utah couldn't run the football on first and second down, and they were in 3rd and long, and Dampier was exposed. That's the same formula that the Ducks need against Drew Aller and Penn State. Control 1st and 2nd down. So that Penn State's in 3rd and long where they're uncomfortable. And I'm telling you, Aller will not perform and get the job done. That's where Oregon's got to do that, and they've got to be able to do it well. But Texas Tech has spent a lot of money in retooling their entire squad. And so this game coming up with ASU and TCU in the Big 12 is huge because the winner of that game is going to be right in line with Iowa State and Texas Tech to seize control of the conference. And then here in a couple of weeks, mid-October, Texas Tech will be down in the desert to take on ASU. Brennan, you got some thoughts?
Yeah, just to kind of piggyback off your point, Chad, I was really into that Texas Tech-Utah game this weekend for a lot of the same reasons. Obviously, Oregon State got boat raced, and I've had a ton of respect for Kyle Whittingham and what they build over there. That result should make everybody in the country realize, hey, Texas Tech is not a top 25 team, at least not talent-wise. They're probably closer to a top 15, top 10 team. And, you and I were talking about it, Chad, before the show. Per on 3, nobody spent more on their roster in the transfer portal than Texas Tech. And you're seeing that return on investment pay off, being able to get a big win like that. And to your point, my brother and I were looking at it and we're like, man, Texas Tech has always kind of been that 7-win team. And to that point, Chad, I don't know, looking back, how you can have Patrick Mahomes in his junior year throw for 5,000 yards and you go 5-7. So it's really not your dad's Texas Tech, so to speak, anymore. So they're a problem this year.
Yeah, you got to be able to win at the line of scrimmage to win big football games, especially when you got to travel on the road and play a team like Utah. And Texas Tech did that. It was an impressive victory. And the other thing that impressed the heck out of me was they had their backup quarterback come in, Will Hammond, and he had to step in because of an injury, and he played extremely well. So, yeah, Texas Tech is for real. That was an impressive game. But, again, when you get what you pay for, right? They went out and spent big money on that defensive line, and they were able to control that game at the point of attack. And when you could do that in football, it's going to put you in a great position. Love that. So much fun. But, yeah, Cam Scatterbo, watch him. Watch Cam Scatterbo with the Giants. He's going to get a larger role. He'll continue to play. And regardless of record, it's not like he cares. He's going to go out and try and do the same thing. I'm going to go out and try and dominate and look for contact. And I respect guys who want contact, which is nice. Now, the other big surprise over the weekend is Carson Wentz, who's getting a chance to play, and he's playing extremely well. And, of course, no surprise, Coach O'Connell with the Vikings brings in another journeyman. And when you work with O'Connell, it means you're going to put up numbers because the guy's like one of the best. He's like a, that term, a whisperer. Like he's like a QB whisperer. Here's Carson Wentz on, returning and getting a chance to play.
Definitely a lot of emotions I had to channel, running out there. It's been a while since getting a chance to do this, but then obviously being in the purple and gold means a little extra something to me personally. So, I definitely had a lot of emotions, but was able to channel them to the best of my ability, go out there and have a lot of fun with those guys. And that's what it was. It was a ton of fun.
Yeah, he had fun. You should when you smash a team by 38 points. But that guy right there, another great story, right? Right up there with Baker Mayfield or Sam Darnold, who's playing well with the Seahawks, who had a big year with the Vikings last year. Geno Smith, all those guys who got a chance to play again and are making the most of it. I love those type of stories. I love seeing guys getting a chance to redeem themselves after a poor start. And for Wentz, he got off to a great start when he was young with the Eagles. He got hurt, and then that team went on to win the Super Bowl without him, and then he kind of bounced around. But now he's getting a chance to solidify himself. And the good thing is, even if he doesn't get a chance to start again with a different team, we know this. You can carve out a nice, long, and productive career as a backup in the NFL. But Carson Wentz, one of those guys, works hard, puts in the study time, and is tough. And he's had to overcome a lot. And I like those type of guys on my team that have faced adversity and found a way to battle through. Very impressive. Very impressive. Tonight's game should be a good watch. Ravens coming off the big win at home over the Browns. Lions coming off the big win at home over the Bears. And we're about 30 minutes away from kickoff there. Lions and Ravens from Baltimore. But a lot of interesting games that took place over the weekend. The Chiefs finally got their first win of the year. It wasn't pretty, but efficient enough to do it against the Giants. And just watching the Giants' offensive line is a disaster. They don't block well. They don't do really anything well. The question is for Brian Daboll, He needs to win games most likely to keep his gig, but he knows that Jackson Dart's not ready to take the field behind that offensive line. So how does he play that? And how much leash does he have from the front office? The 49ers somehow won another game. San Francisco is like the worst 3-0 team in history. 16-15 over the Cards. And props to Kyle Shanahan, who once again has another quarterback, this time Mac Jones, making plays and running the offense the way he wants. Kyle Shanahan's a pretty good coach, and they suffered another injury. How many bad injuries do they have to suffer over a short period of time? They've been decimated. The Bears ripped the Cowboys by 17, 4 touchdown passes for Caleb Williams. Seahawks destroyed the Saints 44-13. Well, at least I was right on one of those teams. I said the Colts and Saints will be the 2 worst in the NFL. I was dead wrong about the Colts, but the Saints are pretty bad. Not a fun team to watch, the Saints. But they have a plan. It's called get the best draft pick possible, and they're on their way to doing that. Jaguars and Texans, almost unwatchable. The Texans are now 0-3. I picked them to win the AFC South. They can't run the football. They can't throw the football, and C.J. Stroud is struggling. That was a painful game. Like, that's what you would use to torture someone to get information from them. We're going to make you watch the Jags and Texans. No, man, I'll tell you whatever you want. Please, just don't make me watch that game. How about the Panthers shutting out the Falcons as underdogs at home? Commanders ripped the Raiders 41-24. Geno Smith, 3 touchdowns in the loss. Bucks and Jets was a wild football game. And the Eagles and Rams, probably the most wild of them all. And I know the Eagles, they're almost like destined already. They win games even when they don't have their best stuff. They're not even playing close to their best football right now. They're undefeated. And good teams, you know what they do? Well, if we need to pick up the passing game, we can do that. If you want us to run the football, we can do that. Or if we need special teams. All 3 phases. That's what Lorenzo Neal used to tell me. Chad, there's 3 phases to the football game. Offense is a third, defense is a third, special teams is a third. Like, it was a big deal to him. And the Eagles got all 3.
They blocked him the last time. The ball is spotted. The kick is away. It's blocked! It's blocked! It's picked up by the Eagles. Running with it is Davis. 30, 20, 10, 5. Touchdown! Game over! Jordan Davis!
Are you kidding me?
Blocked him again!
Are you kidding me?
Blocked him again! Have you ever seen anything like this?
Do you believe in miracles?
The Rams are standing silent. They can't believe what just happened to them. Successive field goal blocks. Win it for the Eagles. What a great, great game. What a great, great comeback. And the final score is 33-26.
That was a crazy finish. How is it that a defensive tackle like that, Davis, he's like 4 times the size of me and he can run faster than me? It's just not fair. Yeah, the Eagles are good. That's a good football team. And, you know, they were getting just smashed in the first half. And then they made a very simple adjustment. It's like, wait a second. The Rams have small corners. We have A.J. Brown, who's an animal. Let's just throw the football to Brown. And what's amazing, it's not even fair with Brown, a guy of his size. He's got, like, muscles coming out of every part of his body. His hands are big and strong. The defensive back cannot get around him. They just kept throwing him the football, and he made plays up and down the field. It's ridiculous. And then when the Rams gave up the lead after being up big, it looked like they were going to find a way to win the football game, and then the Eagles get the block kick in the return. The crazy part is, like, if you were a Rams bettor and you had the Rams at, like, you know, plus 3.5, you're feeling great. We've got this one, and the Rams might win outright. And all of a sudden, the block kick and the return for the touchdown, it's like, that is a bad, bad beat. That's a bad beat. That's painful. Very painful. So there you have it. Crazy games all over the place, but I love it. I still think the best throw, the best play I saw yesterday was Justin Herbert and that ridiculous scramble throw he made to Keenan Allen. And why didn't some other team like the 49ers or someone pick up Allen? He just went back to the Chargers? Well, you didn't think that guy could still play football? He has fit in perfectly with Justin Herbert. You know, sometimes what a guy may lack later in his career in athleticism, you know, Ronnie Lott talked about this all the time. Your mind, your understanding of the game, your mind gets you to where you need to be sooner. So what you lack in maybe raw athleticism as you age in your career, your smarts and understanding the game can get you where you need to be. And I just thought Justin Herbert, really starting to show what he's all about. And I hope everyone takes notice. We here in Oregon, we know how great he is, but a lot of people like to take shots at Herbert. It's like, well, when has he won? But Chad, he's 0-2 in the playoffs. He lost to Jacksonville and Houston. Yeah, well, Dan Marino never won a Super Bowl, and he's still one of the greatest quarterbacks I've ever seen.
Herbert to throw. They rush 4. Herbert has time. Now he doesn't. Climbs the pocket, and now he's going to use his legs. Throws to the end zone. Caught, Keenan, touchdown! Touchdown, Chargers! Keenan, Riley Moss as a backpack comes up with the grab, and they're an extra point away from tying this game.
Basically what happened inside of my brain when I watched that game unfold. They got the game won. Freaking Sean Payton, the genius Sean Payton. Another game slipped right through their fingers. It's so annoying. Your team's in control. All they got to do is maybe punch it in for a touchdown, but instead they settle for a field goal. It's like a death nail on the road in the NFL. It's a death nail. We got two tough coaches tonight, John Harbaugh and Dan Campbell. And you talk about the matchup. I love it with the Lions and Ravens. You couldn't find two very successful quarterbacks in Jared Goff and Lamar Jackson, and yet they play the position in two completely different styles. One is your pure pocket passer, and the other guy is one of the greatest athletes ever and probably ever in that position. When you think athletic quarterbacks, who are the best? It's Lamar, Michael Vick, and Elway, right? And then you got Jared Goff, who yet equally successful, winning it from the pocket. It should be a good game tonight. All right, you can reach out to me, 503-248-0620. What we're going to do coming up at 5 is I'm going to play for you Dame's address to the crowd down in Pioneer Courthouse Square. It was awesome. And what was amazing, half the team showed up in support of Dame. And the fans, as you might expect, showed up and showed out. It was great. The first real public appearance for Dame since he came back. Getting a chance to give his love to Portland. I thought it was a great setup, great day, and a lot of Blazer fans down there. So that's awesome. And hard to believe, but basketball season's right around the corner. And then we're going to preview and dive in deep on Oregon and Penn State coming up at 5:20 with Joe DeLeon, one of my favorite guys to talk to. You can find me on social at Chad and Rip City. You can hit us up and follow the live stream on YouTube. Just go to youtube.com, pull up our homepage, Rip City Radio 620. Chris Burkhart and I were on YouTube yesterday and filmed the entire Dame event, so you should check that out. But we'll hear from Dame coming up at 5. You got the Rip City Drive on your home of the Blazers, 620 Rip City Radio, broadcasting live from the Coors Light Studios. All right, from the 971, Chad, with all due respect, and now remember, I'm saying this with all due respect here. As a Raiders fan, I need that for you as a Broncos fan. And I was like, need what? And he responded with L's. I respect that. The Broncos and Raiders, I think I mentioned this before, but the very first Broncos game I went to way back in the day at the old Mile High Stadium, when you would walk up to the stadium, on the open end of the stadium, they had this gigantic mural that was painted on the stadium, and it was a Bronco tackling a Raider. It's like, of all the rivalries, it's got a lot of hatred there. It was the best during the Mike Shanahan years because, he had gotten fired by Al Davis. And if you talk to Mike, he'll talk about how Al Davis owed him money and never paid him. And so he took it out on him on the field. I think Shanahan in his Broncos career was like 16-5 against the Raiders over the course of a long period of time because he was bitter. And I like that type of bitterness. Al hated Mike. Mike hated Al. And the two teams hated each other. And that's the way it is. Lo Neal used to tell me when he played for the Chargers, when Marty Schottenheimer was coach, Marty Schottenheimer, like the Raider week was a big deal to him. And he would get up there in front of the team and start this long, speech. And he would always start crying to try and get across to the players how important that game was to him. So I love that. I love it when teams get after each other. I love it when you have that type of hatred that builds up and everything. It's terrific. So I'm looking forward to that. Now, with the Civil War, I got to be honest with you. I think the game played out perfectly for both sides. Oregon was able to, get in, get the win, and move on without significant injury and get some experience to guys who maybe don't play as much. And for Oregon State, they lose the game, but I thought, at least with what I saw, that the overall operation of the squad was much tighter. Just a better operation. And so when you have that moving forward now as they get ready for Houston on Friday, I think they can take some of the positives from that and move forward, which is a good thing. So I was happy about that. I thought the Beavers ran a tighter operation. I thought the Ducks did what they needed to do. And look, for the Ducks, how could they be – you're not going to get overzealous about a game against Oregon State when you got Penn State coming up the next weekend. The one thing that continues to jump out at me is the impressive play of that wide receiving core. That was the biggest concern of all the experts I talked to before the season, just the youth and inexperience at receiver for Oregon. But those guys look awesome. Big time, big time. And just looking at the overall roster with the athletes, you can see the work that Lanning's doing. The recruiting, the type of guys he's bringing in. I mean, they're filthy. Penn State, Oregon is going to be epic. Ohio State, Washington will be epic, as will Alabama and Georgia. All right, let's go out and talk to Jackie, who wants to talk about the event that we saw yesterday at Pioneer Courthouse Square with the Dame Reunion Rally. Hey, Jackie, welcome to the show. What'd you think about what you saw downtown yesterday?
Well, I saw you guys on YouTube, you and Burkhart. That was awesome and amazing.
Thank you. It was great.
I don't want to be a Debbie Downer, but I would have liked to have seen this on a broadcast TV channel or maybe the Blazers, 2.2, just to cater to that older crowd that I know still supports the Blazers and doesn't do streaming. And, Channel 2 or 6 could have just, half an hour, and I think that was a missed opportunity.
Well, it may have been. What you can do is that the Trailblazers have posted the entire event up on their YouTube page, so you can go back and watch it, and it's broadcast quality, so you can check it out that way. But I understand it. It's just different for everyone, Jackie, in terms of, how they consume things. I thought the event was great, and, the way that the fans showed up and showed out I thought was terrific. But what was really impressive to me was that Dame, he didn't go up there for some short little trip on stage and then walk off. He talked for quite some time, and then Todd Bosma asked him questions. He responded, and then they welcomed his teammates one by one up on stage. And there were a number of teammates there, including Young Hansen. And he towered over everybody. Time Lord was there. Young Hansen was there. Tamani Kamara was there. Scoot Henderson was there. There were a bunch of guys in the house, which was cool. I didn't expect that, and yet there they were. They kind of bust them in and then bust them out. They made it easy for the guys, but it was cool. Great setup, and we're going to hear from Dame coming up at 5 o'clock. 503-248-0620 is your telephone number. Sean and Sandy has chimed in. Hey, Chad, Damian's comeback is sort of comedy to me, brother. This guy will and has never led anyone to a championship in basketball at any level. I like guys who won state, high school, and hopefully college championships. They know what it takes and the sacrifices in defense Lillard isn't going to make. You don't see Lillard diving on the floor or getting dirty at all. Well, that's just not true. Now, is Dame a good defender? No, that's not the strength of his game. Is he a cold-blooded scorer and big-time shooter? Yes. Yes, he is. And there's a lot of guys who played and had phenomenal careers but never won anything. Is John Stockton one of the greatest players of all time? What about Karl Malone? I mean, there's a long list of players who never won anything. Alex English never won a championship, and yet he led the NBA in scoring in the decade of the 80s. Gary Payton's a pretty good player. He never won a championship. Oh, wait a second. He did, but not as a starter. I think he won one down in Miami. But when he was the key guy in Seattle, he never won a title. There's a lot of great players who have never won a championship. Unfortunately, there are some players that just never get that opportunity. And Dame, you know, he's been on some good teams, but never a complete team that had everything you need to be able to go out and win a championship. But he did help lead the Blazers to a Western Conference final. And I think got the most out of that group that he could possibly get. And then made the move to Milwaukee, and it just never materialized there. But, you know, I mean, rings are important. I mean, players obviously care about that. Championships are important, but not everyone gets in a position to do that. Same thing with football. Dan Marino never won a title. He went to one Super Bowl and lost to the 49ers. But yet he is still regarded as one of the great all-time quarterbacks in the history of the NFL. Josh Allen and Lamar Jackson have never won a title. But I would still put them in the great category. I love watching them play. And they might. Their career's not over. John Elway didn't win a championship until the final 2 years of his career. But he was still a Hall of Fame great player until he won the title. But I'm just happy to have Dame back because of what he means to this town and what the town means to him. And hopefully he'll be able to share some of his experience this year. You know, guys can pepper him with questions. He can help. You know, a lot of tricks to the trade that Dame can share with these young guys. And with that, hopefully, we'll see that type of improvement. When we come back on the Rip City Drive, we're going to hear from Dame at the reunion rally yesterday at Pioneer Courthouse Square. Good event. And then at 5:20, we'll preview Oregon Penn State with Joe DeLeon. Chad doing Rip City Drive on your home of the Blazers, 620 Rip City Radio. All right, 5 o'clock chat here. How about the Mariners, who have an off day? Coming off their sweep over the Astros in Houston, they have a 3-game lead in the AL West. 6 games to play. They finish up with 6 at home, 3 against the Rockies, followed by 3 against the Dodgers. Monday Night Football coming up in just a few minutes. It's going to be a good one. Ravens and Lions from Baltimore. Right now, B-Moore is favored by 4.5. Bad news for the Cowboys, who take on the Packers Sunday. CeeDee Lamb's going to miss multiple weeks with a high ankle sprain. Huge game Saturday in Happy Valley. Number 3, Penn State taking on number 6, Oregon. Nittany Lions, a 3.5-point favorite. That game will kick off at 4:30 on NBC. And also Bruce Pearl stepping down after 11 seasons at Auburn. When we come back on the Rip City Drive, we're going to hear from Dame at the Blazers reunion rally yesterday in downtown. Joe DeLeon previewing Oregon and Penn State at 5:20. All right, for those of you who were not in downtown yesterday for the Damian Lillard reunion rally, I wanted to play a portion of the events from when Dame came up on stage and addressed the crowd. You know, props to the Trailblazer fans for showing up and showing out. The event was awesome. I woke up on Sunday morning with rain. I was like, you got to be kidding me. But by the time I got in downtown to get set up, the clouds disappeared and the sunshine came out. It was a perfect morning and afternoon. And it was really great to see his teammates show up and support. And the best way they welcomed him up on stage was by doing so with the voice of Mark Mason. Take a listen.
And a guard, 6'3", from Weber State, wearing the letter O, Dame Appreciate it. All right, I appreciate it. I appreciate it. I appreciate it. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. You know what time it is. You know what time it is. First, I just want to say how much I appreciate you guys showing this type of love. I think it's well documented how much the Trailblazers, the city of Portland, being a part of this community, y'all know how much it means to me. So I'm extremely excited and happy to be back. I'm excited to be back. Just being back in this city, has brought a different type of joy back to my life, in my spirit. So I'm happy to be back. I'm happy to be a part of a really good team as well. I think it's important for me to, acknowledge, as much as this is extremely important to me personally, I think what the possibilities are for this team to become great is something that made me just as equally as excited as I was about, coming home. So having this type of team, young, depth, future stars of the league, being able to contribute to their success and be a part of that, I think it's going to open the door to bring back a lot of special moments to Rip City. So make some noise for all my teammates that also came out to support. Yes, sir. And the same for Joe, Jody, Bert, everybody who's played a part in not only my success in my career during my time in Portland, but also making it possible for me to return and welcoming me back with open arms. So it's much appreciated. I'm excited to be back. The love never changed, and it's going to continue to grow. So I appreciate y'all, man. Thank you.
Man, they're going to go all day. All day. All right. All right, now I've got a few questions for Dame. I've been waiting a long time to ask you some questions again, man. And first of all, thanks for bringing the sunshine back out to Portland here today. We appreciate it. So I got a question for you. Let's rewind, if you can, back to 2024, January. NBA players are creatures of habit. They all have their same routines. Tell us what it was like for you coming to Moda Center and having to go to the visiting team locker room. How weird was that for you?
It was one of the more weird moments of my career. When I walked in the building, I actually didn't even know where it was. Believe it or not, I didn't know where to go. So it was weird to walk into that building that's so familiar, but then it was the one room that I probably couldn't find. So I didn't know where it was, but just that experience overall, when I got to the floor, I walked out and I was like, usually I can put my emotions aside and I can lock in any environment. I can get my mind right and do what I got to do. And that was one of the first times that I felt like, from the start of the game, and I mean like pregame until the end of the game, I never was able to engage and go to a place that I've always been able to go to. And I think that's because of like the genuine emotions that I felt. I'm looking around at this building that I've always played in. I've played most of my games there, and now like I'm not a part of this no more. And I think it affected me, and I think it was an eye opener for me on that night.
How much nicer is the Blazer locker room than the visiting team locker room?
It's much nicer. It's much nicer.
We want to make sure we're taking care of the home crowd. Now you talked about it a little bit. Stepping out onto the court, pregame warm-ups. Tell us what it was like for you in that moment when you were introduced as a member of the visiting team, but still got that ovation from Rip City.
Man, I didn't know what to do. It was like, typically I try to not, draw any attention to myself, or I try to, just kind of float under the radar. And when it's a moment to stick my chest out or to stand my ground, I'll do it. But it's not like I'm not looking for that. So when I had to kind of face that, and I was able to feel scared of bees, hold on. Almost got me. But when I kind of was forced to face that amount of love and the ovation and how it just kept going on and on and on, that was tough to deal with. It was hard.
So you mentioned a little bit earlier, and I think everybody who's watched you play know what a cool customer you are, and you try to keep your emotions in check, like you said. But we saw it a little bit at the end of that video. Take us through the emotions walking into the Trailblazers locker room for that first time after you're back with the team.
I was overcome with a lot of emotion. I think mostly because not only am I coming back to this city and this organization, but it was unexpected. Over the last 2 seasons, being in a different city, being away from my family and being away from my kids, it was a lot of quiet time and a lot of alone time. And there was a lot of things that I just didn't have that I, had become accustomed to as a regular part of my day, part of my week. It wasn't there. So just walking in the locker room, seeing my jersey, knowing like I'm a part of this team again, I'm a part of this city again. It was just a special feeling, and yeah, it was a special feeling just to know that and know that it was, it was done and it was confirmed, because I was under contract for 2 more years, and it took a major injury, unfortunately. It took a lot of things for something like this to happen, because it couldn't have been scripted better. I couldn't have scripted it better. Only God could, and he did.
Now, today's welcome is special, is really special. But tell us, what's it going to be like for you to be introduced again at the Moda Center as a member of the Trailblazers? How are you going to feel then?
Man, it's going to feel great. I think, yeah, it's going to feel great. It's going to feel great, and that's something that I'm really looking forward to. I think every time that I've ever put that uniform on, you know, in my mind, I always, you know, would say to Joe sometimes, like, I want to step out there and, you know, everybody look like, you know, that's a real team. Like, I want to represent the Blazers in that way. Like, when we get to the tip, I want them to look at us and know, like, this team is there. And I think this time around, you know, I'm extremely excited to be introduced, but for that reason, because when I look at our team and I look at the guys and I got to see them from a distance before I came back to be a part of the team, and I love what I see. So being a part of that is what I'm most excited about. You know, just not only being able to be introduced, but being able to be introduced and know the type of team that I'm stepping out there with.
Now you mentioned your kids earlier, and even in your reintroductory press conference, you said you were driving when it finally dawned on your daughter that she didn't have to get on a plane to go home, which is awesome. But when did that set in for you, despite the travels of the NBA and the rigors of the schedule, that you, Damian Lillard, were back home here in Oregon? When did that set in?
I mean, I would say like around that same time it started to really register to me that, like, man, like, this is really happening. And then I would say like a week ago, and that would be about the time that I would usually be having to pick up and leave. And when I was like, man, I don't have nowhere to go. Like, I'm home.
I'm
so
home.
That was when it really clicked, and I was just like, man, I don't have to go nowhere. You know, I'm home. That was how it crossed my mind. Appreciate it.
Now, as excited as we are to have Damian Lillard, the basketball player, back here on the Trailblazers, we're equally excited to have Damian Lillard, the person, back here in Portland and in Oregon. Tell us a little bit about why it was important for you to continue the work that you do in the community with your basketball camps and your charity, even while you were a member of the Bucks.
I think it's just, like I said, this is home. You know, I've been living in Portland for 14 years now, and, you know, you don't forget about home. You know, things happen in your life, and I think that goes for everybody here, but, you know, the things that you love and the things that you care about, you don't stop caring and stop loving on those things just because, you know, there might be some changes. So everything that I've been connected to in the community, SEI, Black Parent Initiative, the Respect Campaign, everything that I've done around the city, my heart was connected to it. You know, I only do things that I truly care about and that I'm truly invested in. So that wasn't going to change because I was no longer a part of the Portland Trailblazers organization, because actually in my mind and in my heart, you know, I said it, you know, when I did leave, I was like, I think I'll be in the Trailblazer uniform again. I just didn't know when. So, you know, my heart and my mind was never different than it was, and it'll continue to be that way.
Well, we appreciate that for sure. Home is where the heart is, for sure. So now you mentioned it a little bit earlier, and even in your reintroductory press conference, this team that you're joining, you talked about a young team that is ready to defend, and even when you were with the Bucks, you'd follow in because we're on the West Coast, so your games would be over and you'd be able to check in. What excites you the most about joining this new iteration of the Trailblazers?
I just think, as a whole, like when I see the team, a lot of the NBA is changing. You know, it's not the same old thing. You're seeing a lot of the younger teams starting to get out front, and those teams have depth. You know, they got a lot of defenders. They got multiple scorers. They got size. They have length. And I think with our team, over the last couple of years, they've been able to grow and grow and grow and grow. And then you add like a couple vets to the team, and me looking at it, I see the potential. You know, I see what it could be, watching the games, I see somebody like Tumani, and I'm like, I want to play with him. I see Denny, and I'm like, I want to play with him. I see Shea. I was here with Shea as a rookie, and I'm looking at Shea, and I'm like, I want to play with this Shea. I see superstar level talent point guard like Scoot Henderson, and I'm like, I can help him. I can be a part of his journey. And when I look at this team like as a whole, and what it could be, and that's like I said, from a distance, and now being up close and being around the team more, like I wouldn't say it if I didn't mean it. And I really think this team has the potential to do the same as a lot of these other up-and-coming teams are doing, and I'm excited to be a part of that.
Well, you mentioned some of your teammates are here to support you. So let's bring them up right now. What do you think?
How about Dame handling the crowd just fine? That was an awesome event. Props to the Trailblazers, the way they set everything up, and the fans who showed up and showed out. That was awesome. All right, let's preview Oregon and Penn State. We're going to do it next with Joe DeLeon here on the Rip City Drive.
Wilson over center this time. Hands it off for Scadaboo. Up the middle. Cuts left. He's to the 5 to the goal line. Did he get in? No signal yet. Touchdown Giants. Cam Scadaboo.
All right, very happy to welcome back to the show college football and NFL draft expert, Joe DeLeon. And Joe, man, Cam Scadaboo, we loved him in college, and now he's doing the same things that he did in the NFL where he's just trucking guys and finding ways to make a difference for his team. I loved it last night.
Oh, he was fantastic. It comes like a little bit of like a bittersweet moment for Giants fans because Tyrone Tracy went down with an injury, and he's going to be out for a period of time. But, dang, we get to watch some more Cam Scadaboo. We get to watch him run hard. I wonder if maybe they bring somebody else in to round out that running back room. I think that he is going to get a lot of chances to touch the football. The 120-plus yards from scrimmage that he had against the Chiefs is just the beginning of what he can accomplish.
You know, I didn't know how exactly he would translate to the NFL, but here's what I've picked up on by watching sports most of my life is that Cam Scadaboo is one of those classic, like, overachievers where he knows where he needs to be. He's going to work harder than anybody else, and he's going to continue to find a way to make plays. And I just think that coaches, when you have guys like that work that hard, aren't they going to continue to find ways to get them involved in the mix?
Well, and I think the other part with this, too, is that there's been a lot of love from the Giants coaching staff and the roster for Scadaboo's personality. He's just one of those guys that's a total vibe that everybody wants to be around. You know, there's a couple viral clips that's been shared by the Giants media of him just running around screaming, making noise, trying to get guys hyped up. And that's the type of player that you need on a roster sometimes. I know that things are looking pretty bleak right now for the future of the Giants. They're probably going to end up hiring a new head coach in the next year, or maybe even sooner than that, obviously. There is one guy on this team that I would want to commit to as much as possible and try to turn him into a leader. If he becomes a captain under the new coaching staff, it really would not shock me.
Well, we might as well play this audio since it's so awesome. But here is Brian Daboll last week at a press conference, and then Cam Scadaboo distracts him and then yells for no apparent reason.
The injury, or is it a stamina thing right now that he hasn't had those full days and things? Sorry, Scadaboo. Can you repeat that, please? That's fine. I thought
Dude, I love that so much, man, because that's exactly how that guy rolls.
Oh, no, absolutely. And I appreciate you pulling that because that was exactly what I was talking about. I mean, Brian Daboll's in this spot where he has no idea when he's going to end up getting fired, and he gets to just sit and laugh about Scadaboo. And I really like this kid. I really think that, he's going to be a big reason why this team's run game maybe gets a little bit more production than anyone would have anticipated. We saw the impact that he had against the Chiefs, even though he did it on 10 carries, I believe. He didn't get a ton of touches. He still found ways to create yards.
Oh, by the way, you've been watching football for a while. Have you ever seen have you ever seen an offensive line this bad put together like the Giants have? I mean, it's they don't block very well, Joe.
Well, one of the biggest issues right now, and it's kind of crazy how you have the example of how good Andrew Thomas is when he's not available and he's been out with an injury for some time. It's really held them back, and he's slowly being brought back into the mix. His foot injury that he suffered last year against the Bengals was so severe that they don't want to rush it. So he started the first half against the Chiefs, and it was night and day. The Giants' offensive line was like immaculate how much better it was. And then they didn't play him the second half because there's a snap count that they had limited to. I'm sure that the approach was see how close they could make the game at halftime and see what happened when they put Marcus Bowe into the game. Sadly, things didn't go well when they ended up making that transition. But having Thomas in is so crucial for that team succeeding. And hopefully, once Thomas is back and healthy, they can protect Jackson Dart once he takes over.
Okay, so that's where I wanted to go with you next with Jackson Dart. You know, it's kind of an interesting situation that you have more knowledge of, but it would seem to me that Brian Daboll and his crew are under a little bit of pressure to win games, but yet they also understand that maybe Jackson Dart's not ready to throw out there with that offensive line. So how do you see this playing out? When will we see Jackson Dart get on the field?
Well, so I think that there's a long conversation that can be had with this. The one thing I'd like to just address first is that I see a lot of people bringing up the uncertainty of Jackson Dart's ready to go or not. And I think that it's natural for us to talk about with rookie quarterbacks that they shouldn't be rushed out there. I think that that's not Dart's issue. I think that Dart is one of the few guys who's played so much football that he will be ready to go, and he will be able to play at a higher level than most quarterback prospects. He's played 45 games in his career. He's 22 years old. He's been around the game at 2 different programs, multiple stops with great offensive minds, especially Lane Kiffin. I think that his experience that he's had is enough for him to step out there. He's not somebody like Anthony Richardson that's barely played, that needed reps and needed to learn, and that it was going to be a gradual learning process that may or may not work out. He is closer to his floor than people realize. He's got a pretty high floor. He just doesn't have as high of a ceiling as a Cam Ward did, or a Jaden Daniels, or a Drake May. So I bring that up to say that he's more ready, and he clearly is, based on the commentary and the way that the coaching staff has talked about him, their actions of making him the backup quarterback. They're satisfied with what he has done so far and how far along he has come to this point. I think, too, though, as you mentioned here, they're under this pressure spot to win at the current moment, the coaching staff, and they're not going to. They're 0-3. They are playing the Chargers next week. They get a game against the Saints coming up, which should be a win for them. It would be disappointing if it wasn't. They're not going to win this year. The way that if Brian Daboll were to theoretically save himself time and buy himself time, if he put Dart out there, and Dart plays well, and Dart kills it, and he ends up being in the offensive rookie of the year conversation with Emeka Ibuka and Omarion Hampton and all these guys that have been playing well so far. That's the only way that he keeps his job. Russell Wilson does not get them where they think they can get them. And most importantly, I don't think that Jackson Dart's going to be so much worse than Russell Wilson that the team collapses and falls apart. It's clearly becoming a distraction. Daboll just needs to make the move. I don't know what's holding them up.
It's Joe DeLeon, and that makes a lot of sense. I appreciate your insight there here on the Rip City Drive. I wanted to ask you about the Chargers. They got the last-second win over the Broncos yesterday. They're 3-0. I thought that throw that Justin Herbert made to Keenan Allen was one of the best I have seen in quite some time. What are your thoughts on the way that Jim Harbaugh is constructing that team and the way Herbert's playing so far this year?
Yeah, I think that where we're seeing this team go is that you're seeing Justin Herbert play more freely. And we know that Harbaugh has found success with his teams by facilitating the offense and facilitating the identity through running the football and winning along the lines of scrimmage. And I think that where this Chargers team has become very dangerous in a position to be 4-0 after they beat the Giants, they're in that spot because they got to where they needed to be very quickly. Their roster might not be as sexy as some other teams. They might not have the elite, crazy athletes at certain positions in order to be able to stretch defenses super difficult ways over the top. Ways that they're able to win is through getting the ball to Omarion Hampton and for Herbert to be able to roll out and throw on the move and to make some of those difficult throws. I think that where Herbert continues to succeed is not feeling like he has to do everything and that he has to be Superman. Harbaugh is so great at developing culture, and I can see now very quickly within 2 years that he has really, really built that culture.
Yeah, there's no question about it. I wanted to play this for you. Baker Mayfield is quickly becoming one of my favorite players in the NFL. Here's what he had to say yesterday after the win over the Jets to move the Bucs to 3-0.
I loved it, and it's also their D coordinator was the one that cut me in Carolina. So it was a lot of stuff was personal today. Hassan Reddick, former Jet, a lot of people.
It's kind of refreshing to hear a guy say exactly what he's thinking up there at the podium. We don't get that too often. It's sweet.
And for some reason, I saw a couple people on Twitter that were poo-pooing this and talking down on this, and I don't understand that. I mean, the guy has absolutely been doubted, and you have to find ways to motivate yourself when that happens in order to succeed. The best athletes, the best in any field, are the ones that find various ways to feel disrespected. It's the little things. Yeah, it's something as simple as getting cut by a guy that you haven't interacted with that's in a completely different location. I like Baker Mayfield for that very reason. When he was coming out of the draft in his year, I wasn't truly impressed by his physical tools compared to some of the other guys in that class. But what separated him and why he was the first overall pick was because of his identity, his leadership skills, what his personality brought to the table. There's a reason why the Browns suddenly were starting to get better when he was their quarterback, and why now the Buccaneers are 3-0, and they've been consistently successful since he's taken over as their quarterback. So, no, I love it, man. I think that you got to have a chip on your shoulder, and nobody should ever really downplay that. You need to have that edge.
You know what's funny is I love Lou Holtz, and I enjoyed him during his time at Notre Dame, but it used to kill me because he would come up to the podium before like playing Navy, and he's like, man, I've looked at the film. This is going to be a tough, tough game. And then they go out there and beat him by like 40. And I'm like, just one day I want a coach to come out and say, hey, I've looked at the film. I got to be honest with you, we're going to kick their ass. Like, I always thought that would be pretty cool to get that.
Yeah, and I'm a big Lou Holtz fan too. I've read his book, and I'm a Notre Dame fan, so I'm in love with his background and where he's come from. So like I appreciate those that talk that way. That again, find ways to find that edge instead of talking smack. It's how do you find ways to feel disrespected and find that motivation?
Yeah, no question. Let's talk about the big game coming up on Saturday. I need your take on Oregon Penn State. I mean, is this as simple as it's going to come down to that battle between the Oregon defensive line and the Penn State offensive line? What do you think? First take on this matchup.
Yeah, I certainly think that's the very important matchup in this game, and we know that this Penn State offensive line has been tremendous this year. I'm a very big fan of Drew Shelton, their left tackle for the upcoming draft, and I think he doesn't get enough love in this upcoming class. Where, for me, this game is made or broken is between Dante Moore and Drew Aller. Drew Aller has not taken the step that we thought he was going to take to start the season. He was getting a lot of attention potentially as a 2025 draft prospect. He decided to go back. He's been talked about as a preseason Heisman guy, and he hasn't exactly fit into that category. He has still struggled with decision-making, his internal clock. His accuracy has still been a little bit erratic. I wonder, though, coming into this game, knowing that he's a true gamer and he's one of those guys when the lights come on that he steps up to the plate, was the version that we saw for them in their warm-up schedule, was that not the real version? Was the offense that they were calling not what they're planning to do and that Andy Kotelnicki wants to run? Are they waiting to open things up for this big game and they just wanted to get through those early stretch performances to feel out what the weaknesses were and then address them with the bye week going into Oregon? If he plays to his physical attributes, he is unstoppable, and their receiving room should be improved enough that it should really stress the secondary for this Oregon team. And I think for Dante Moore's case, it's the complete opposite. Is everything that we've seen so far where he's played at this Heisman level and he's been one of the most efficient quarterbacks in the country, is it true? Is it real? Or, and I'm not comparing him to Nico, but like last year we had Nico for Tennessee smoke his way against Kent State and NC State against a bunch of nobodies, and the minute that he was challenged by his SEC schedule, he collapsed. I don't think that's going to happen for Dante Moore. I absolutely don't. I love this kid. I think he is so gifted. And I think what the reality of this matchup will be is Dante Moore will step up to the challenge on the road in the whiteout environment, and we're going to see the typical woes and mistakes going up against a tremendously coached defense with a really good secondary and a really physical defensive line. The mistakes for Aller will probably show up.
Yeah, that's what's going to be fascinating. You and I talked about the Ducks before the year began. What's been more impressive to you, the play of the young wide receivers that need to prove themselves, or is it the continuity amongst the reworked offensive line to where now the Ducks, who last year averaged about 4.5 yards a carry, are now up there over 6 yards a carry? They've got more balance back in the offense. What's been more impressive to you?
Yeah, I think that getting that balance back has definitely been very impressive to see. And I think that overall the dominance for this Oregon team and just the way that they're starting to feel is really caught my attention. One thing I will say that's not really been talked about a lot, and I don't have as close of an eye on the Oregon team as those in the area who have been fans and follow, or the media that have been following it. But one thing I've noticed is that most of the starters and the key players in this team, they're not playing that much. They've been able to take them out of these games because they're winning by so much and they're dominating so much. A part of me wonders, are we not even seeing the full force of what this team is capable of? Are we not even seeing the full version of this Duck squad? Because they're just not putting all their guys out there, and they're able to put their backups in. Having that depth, I think, is truly amazing and is going to pay them dividends for the rest of the year.
All right, a couple of thoughts real quick before you go. Just a couple of games I'm looking at. Your quick take on Washington, Ohio State.
This Ohio State game between them and Washington, I think, is going to be a really nice barometer for Ohio State to understand how they're going to go up against someone like DeMond Williams, who's super elusive and hard to track down. This could be one of those games where if you overlook your opponent, it turns into a close nail-biter of a game just because we know that they have that firepower offensively. But as we saw from their game against Wazoo, they have a lot of defensive issues. I mean, they gave up way too many points to a Wazoo team that's been quite hapless through the first few weeks of the season. I think that we're going to watch Jeremiah Smith and Parnell Tate and Brandon Innes in that receiving trio that they have, and Max Clare. All these guys are going to put up pretty productive days for this Ohio State offense because, as I mentioned, Washington has not figured out their identity.
All right, Bama and Georgia. I mean, it's hard to imagine Georgia losing a home game. I mean, is there any reason to believe that Kalen DeBoer can turn it around in this game?
I don't think so, and that's the big talking point that I had on my show tonight was how I have a lot of pause to believe that suddenly Kalen DeBoer figures out his issues of struggling in games on the road, and having to do it in Sanford and having to do it at Georgia, and knowing
they haven't lost a home game in like 5 years, for crying out loud. It's ridiculous.
Right, and they might have a string of success recently going up against this Georgia squad, but they haven't traveled to Athens since 2015. So there's really not much of a precedent that we can turn to with DeBoer and Kirby having played in Athens. But I really think that this Georgia squad, being able to play as freely as they did against Tennessee on the road and to really stare down the barrel and have the intensity and the focus to win the way that they did, that's going to translate in a matchup like this. I've got the utmost confidence in Georgia in this game.
All right, Joe DeLeon, you got to follow him on social. College football and NFL draft expert. He is absolutely one of the best. Joe, I appreciate the time. I know you're busy, but, man, thanks for carving it out, and enjoy the week. This weekend is going to be awesome, and I felt bad because one of my buddies reached out. He's a big Duck fan. He's got to be at a wedding on Saturday, and I'm like, man, these fall weddings during football season have got to stop. It's a travesty.
Yeah, you got to call in sick for that. You can't let that happen.
All right, buddy. We'll catch up soon. Thanks, Joe.
All right, thanks. Have a good one.
There you go. Joe DeLeon breaking it down. Monday Night Football, Ravens-Lions tied up at 7 in the first quarter, 3:16 to play. And enjoyed that conversation with Joe. And I looked at the line. Brendan, I think the Beavers are double-digit underdogs at home to Houston this Friday.
Yeah, I think from my story I did this morning, I think 12.5 is where the line landed. And I think that's accurate. At least it's not as bad as 35.5, right?
Oh, my goodness.
I mean, of course, I'll have more orange-colored glasses on than most. I think an outside chance, maybe they win Friday night. Friday night, weird game. Houston's been on a bye week. You never know. Oregon State is a wounded animal backed into a corner right now.
How much would a win mean for the program right now?
Oh, it'd be enormous. I mean, you're talking about Trent Bray having to field questions like today in his press conference about what his conversations are like with Scott Barnes, the athletic director, how much belief is in him. Like, all that gets quieted if you go and get a win. And, still, Oregon State would be 1-4. But we've talked about this, Chad. There are opportunities, and if the locker room is, as Trent Bray has said, still together, still tight, he calls it the outside noise that we were all talking about, then, yeah, you could still find some wins in the second half of the schedule. You just had to get through the last 2 weeks. So now it's put up or shut up time, in my opinion.
All right. Big thanks to Joe DeLeon. We'll keep things rolling here. Rip City Drive. It's Monday, man. The games are so good this week, and I want the week to fly by.
Oh, they're awesome.
Oh, it's so good. All right. 503-248-0620 is your telephone number. Next Monday will be Trailblazers Media Day, and then they'll launch into camp and get ready for the preseason, which starts October 8th. You got the Rip City Drive on your home of the Blazers, 620 Rip City Radio. All right, let's go out to the phones. My man Chris in Northeast is out there, wants to talk some Giants. Chris, welcome to the show, my friend. What's on your mind?
Hey, Chad, how you been?
Oh, fabulous. How about you?
All right. I would have called sooner, but I'm like in full job hunt mode as the teacher trying to pick up the last, opening assignment for the year. So apologies, but can you explain to me? I don't get why it's clear Russell Wilson is like dropped off, but what happened? Because I look at Aaron Rodgers is about the same age. They each have a Super Bowl, and he has a torn Achilles. And I mean, Russ, I know he has that bad offensive line there, and I saw the best and the worst in the game before last when he had like 500 yards. I turn on the TV, he throws a bomb for a TD. I'm like, yay! And then the next play, he throws like 2 plays later, throws an interception. And I can't make high-low of it at all. I don't know if I just didn't watch him enough when he left the Hawks, and where wasn't he? He was a Bronco, right? And it's just been this downward spiral. And I was wondering if you think, like, if this is it for him, do you think he'll become a backup or just be out of the league by the end of the year? So what do you think?
Yeah, that's a good question. My guess is that he would probably just shut it down, Chris. And not only that, but teams that they may not want Russ as a backup because, teams don't want too much attention on their backup quarterback. You want that guy to kind of be a silent name until he's called upon. I don't really know. I don't have an answer to what happened to Russ. And I've talked to a lot of people, guys who are around the game, who don't really have an answer. It's bizarre because I thought for sure when the Broncos got him, I still remember the day when I got the news. I mean, I screamed. I scared my dog half to death. I called my dad. I thought it was a game changer for the Broncos, and it just never materialized. Really frustrating. It's bizarre. We just haven't seen a guy in his prime just fall off the cliff like that I can remember. It never happens, but yet with him it did. And it's too bad because I like him. I know a lot of people throw shade at him, but he's a good guy, and he does a lot of great things in the community, and he's a Hall of Fame quarterback, regardless of what's taken place post-Seattle, and one of the most important players in Seahawks franchise history. Let's go to Mitch in New Jersey. Mitch, you got to be happy. Your USC Trojans are on fire right now.
Definitely. How you doing, Chad?
Fabulous. Jordan Mailata, when they're running the football the way they are right now, and he's got play action in his hands, he's unstoppable.
He's got a good arm.
Yes.
They have good running backs. They also have possible 2 wide receivers that could.
And, Mitch, I give you credit. You called it. You called it, Mitch. You said keep an eye on Jordan Mailata. You were excited, and now look at him. He's balling. Good call.
He is. Micaiah Lemon, good wide receiver, first-round pick, and so Jacoby Lane. But I also want to mention a couple of ex-Pac-12 quarterbacks that could be in the race. Fernando Mendoza, he's kicking, in Indiana. He uses basketball. And Medea, who kind of reminds me of Russell Wilson, who he's done enough to be in the Hall of Fame. It's amazing. Not even 6 feet tall. North Carolina State. You gotta like Russell. He's done enough. It was unfortunate. It's kind of like mimicking his end of his career is Aaron Rodgers, which what a shame.
Yeah, no doubt.
But what do you think about those 2 guys for possible? Mendoza, whose brother also backs him up. He's a freshman. Alberto Mendoza, Cuban, and Mattia came from Washington State. How could the Cougars let him go? Well, I know it's the money. They're chasing the money.
Yeah, I don't.
They're chasing the carrot, the big carrot.
Yeah, when you're competing,
that's the name of the game.
Washington State, Oregon State, those schools can't compete against the big schools with that type of cash. It's the way it is.
And somebody told me that Cal does not have NIL. I find it be ridiculous. How can they not have NIL? NIL, that's why Fernando Mendoza left for Indiana.
Well, the problem is with Cal is like outside of the coach, no one cares about the football program down there. It's a bizarre place, Berkeley.
Down there from you because that's ACC territory. Like Stanford.
Yeah.
This is so ridiculous.
It is ridiculous.
This is so ridiculous. I couldn't really watch the USC game Saturday night because it started at 11 o'clock my time. Now it's going to be noon Saturday, middle of the day.
Oh, by the way, Trav and I.
Prime time.
Trav and I were talking about you on Friday. Are you a Billy Joel fan?
His music, I like his music.
Okay. I was just curious.
Yeah, Long Island. Maybe it's time for him to retire too.
Well,
I mean, come on, he's up there. He's got to be up there in age. A little older than me, so he's close to 70.
Yeah, he's old.
Oh.
But he enjoys performance, so, just do what you can do, I guess.
Say Goodbye to Hollywood.
Yeah.
That's
Yeah,
one of my
exactly.
favorite songs.
That's a good one. Well, good
and
luck.
one of his videos.
Good luck to your Trojans
okay.
this weekend. I'm concerned about the Illinois game, but just wanted to keep an eye on. Could be an upset special.
They have a good quarterback at him at Illinois, fighting Illinois. Oh, by the way, one of the videos for Billy Joel's song was filmed at high school in Staten Island Catholic school.
Oh, nice.
Back in the day, yeah.
I like that.
More than 40 years ago. I don't watch videos anymore. Hey, Chad, you have a nice one.
You too,
Thanks for
buddy.
taking my call.
You got it, Mitch. There's Mitch in New Jersey. Self-proclaimed Billy Joel fan. I asked Trav on Friday, I said, do you think Mitch likes Billy Joel? He goes, of course. All right, big thanks to our guests today, Benjamin Albright, NFL insider, and Joe DeLeon, college football expert and NFL draft analyst. Brendan Slaughter for engineering the program. We'll be back tomorrow at 3. The Rip City Drive on your home of the Blazers, 620 Rip City Radio. Have a good night, my friends.